we have a philosophy, obviously, as a mobile operator, that our value discipline is customer experience. That's the first point. You can have value discipline in price or product innovation, but we chose customer experience as an important value discipline. And by that drives a lot of things, how we think about our investments in our network. So the quality of service in our network is of primary importance. And obviously, we spend a lot more investment in making sure, our network is going to deliver the services at the quality our consumers expect. So if you look at the recent Ookla award, I'm not sure if you know what Ookla is. Ookla is a global organization that tracks network intelligence and connectivity insight. So they have global framework to monitor and test network quality across all operators. And we're delighted that they have picked Ncell as the fastest mobile network in this country. Obviously, that's a function of a lot of things, right? It's a function of the investments that we make. We focus on making sure that our 4G network has the right population coverage, to make sure that it has the right capacity. We know consumers don't need 100 megabits per second coverage. But what they do need is when they look at a video on a network, that there's no buffering and that you can get 1080p quality. For all operators, and we are no different, we allocate a significant budget for infrastructure investments. So like all businesses, there's a BAU investments that you need, and there's also incremental beyond BAU, BAU is business as usual, right? So networks requires maintenance, just as a car is. You need to change the tires, you need to change the engines, you need to change things to make it perform better. So for us, we invest about $70–80 million a year as a baseline to make sure the network delivers, a quality that's of the right standard that we expect, at least to deliver the customer experience that we pride ourselves on. Certainly, as an operator, expansion and coverage and depth, which is quality, to do with depth is quality, is an important consideration. So if you look at our 4G network, right now is reachable to about 88% of population. By end of Q1, we expect that to be about 94–95%. And that's roughly where it's going to stay for quite a while, actually. Because as you can imagine, the terrain for Nepal, if you look at Terai to the hills, some parts are very, very difficult. You can do it, but there's no financial feasibility to do it. So most of us will stay somewhere between 93–95% population coverage. Right now we're at 88%. Yeah, that's a significant challenge, mostly physical. Physical, I don't know if you know, when we build a site, say in Terai versus one in the hills, let's say at 3,000 meters or thereabouts, the mechanics of transferring equipment to these two locations are very different. So in hills, we call what we use the word head load. Head load means human beings carry those structures up there, not necessarily completed structures, but certainly the raw materials. And that takes a lot of time, that takes a lot of effort, that takes a lot of people to build one site. So that's the practicality of it. Then there's also the financial feasibility of it. So like all investments that we do, most of it should generate a return, at least collectively, as a total investment. But for many sites that we do, say the ones that we have in base camp and in some of the tracking sites, they don't necessarily generate a return on a standalone basis, right? Because you don't get enough usage in each one of these sites. But as a whole, you kind of need to have that coverage. But the challenge is obviously constructing it. That translates to probably about 3–4 times more cost than you would build one in Terai, between hills and Terai. That's a bit of a paradox for us. I think, we all said 4G is great, definitely, and 4G, the intent is to drive adoption of digital and data. And in that process, obviously consumers over time moves up towards data adoption as well, and they do more things on data. So if you look at traffic, say comparing 12 months ago, voice OTT traffic, yeah, that means making a WhatsApp call, etc., has increased from about less than 10% to about 35%. So this is strictly OTT traffic. So what that means is there's a natural displacement for voice traffic, correct? And from a data perspective, yes, data consumption has increased definitely. If you compare 2 years ago at about just under 2 gig, now is about 4 gig per user, yeah, and we expect that to keep going up actually. Our intent obviously is to drive more data consumption. But nonetheless, in this market, voice is still a pretty reasonable traffic. Yeah. But for most markets, developed market, voices have totally disappeared actually. Yeah, so if you look at some of the developed markets, they don't sell a voice plan. All they sell is a data plan. And voice is almost free. It's usually free, like 1,000 minutes or 2,000 minutes as part of the bundle. But you need to commit to a data plan. In this market, there's still a bit of balance. That trend is shifting. I think in a couple of years, I think OTT traffic would dominate over voice traffic. It's a fine balance. You know, when we first rolled out 4G, we were also cognizant that if you roll out 4G so quickly, you are encouraging users to use data and displace your voice traffic with OTT traffic, right? So whilst on the one hand, data is the future, yes, we do drive pretty hard, and in terms of most of our campaigns, we focus on data. Our entire business, the cost or the economics of our business is driven by data. You know, less than 5% of our investment that we make is to support voice actually. So 95% investment we make is to support data. You know, data needs to grow faster, consumption needs to increase a lot faster. Recognizing that voice will not be there in probably the next 2-3 years in this market. Consumption is going, but price of the retail price of data is very low in this market actually, comparatively. Yeah, I don't know if you know, say you compare with the other markets around us, the yield that we are getting out of data doesn't quite cover the cost that we take to serve that same 1 gig. So we need to shift that that balance at some point where yield would be greater than cost. Otherwise, it's not a sustainable business. No. So yeah, whilst on the one hand we're driving data, we need to focus on driving our costs to serve lower as well. Yeah, I mean 5G is in my opinion, 5G is an enterprise proposition actually. Firstly, we're still waiting for trial licenses. Yeah, I think once we get that, we would certainly go into a trial to try and understand how it plays out in this market. But the initial offerings or use cases for 5G is actually enterprise related. I think a lot of people ask, you know, whether you can charge more for 5G. The answer is probably not for consumers. So, you know, the best bet for use case to have a return on 5G would be around what they call enhanced mobile broadband actually. So 5G allows us to serve the enterprise through wireless means instead of a fixed wired mean a lot more efficiently. So while the first use case is enterprise, and then on the back of that, maybe as consumer applications or machine-to-machine applications becomes more prevalent, that is probably the second use case. Yeah. It will improve experience for a consumer for sure, but you don't need the entire capacity of 5G to enjoy your YouTube on a small screen, correct? As I said, yes, it will improve experience. Will it drive business? I think that's a function of each market. No? Right now, the biggest markets for 5G is China and Korea. And the use case for all the other markets are non-existent. Even though they may have some trial networks or there's some very small footprint of 5G, it is not proven yet. So the jury is still out for most markets for a consumer-driven 5G, that the economics isn't quite there.
Because like from a personal point of view, I don't think Nepal is ready for 5G. Because
Yeah, I mean,
people don't even have access to 4G.
yes, you're right. So, 4G, we still have ample capacity in this country. Yeah, so all the operators are still trying to maximize utilization of 4G. Our networks are only between 40 to 60% utilized on 4G. Yeah, so throwing another layer of 5G, that gives you speeds that you don't even know what to do with it. It's not necessarily a great proposition. But trialing it is certainly something that we all can do today. Yeah, and as the global markets mature, hopefully, some learnings can come from the other markets of what 5G could be. Is it beyond enterprise? It could be obviously supporting a massive IoT or M2M type capability as well. But this market certainly is a couple of years behind. So when we first rolled out 4G or before 4G, everyone said we could charge for 4G, between 4G and 3G, I'm saying. But the truth is you can't. Consumers don't really care about whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6Gs, right? What they care about is the experience on the network. And in a mobile environment, it's very difficult to put a price tag on saying, because you use 3G, it's going to be X cost, and 4G is Y cost, and 5G is going to be Y plus X cost. That's not going to work. It hasn't been the case. So 4G was a given, that it's just an enhancement to 3G, correct? And that's why 5G for consumer is not going to work in the near term. It will be there, but I don't believe any operators can charge for it. So they'll try and monetize it on the enterprise side of things, where enterprise has a much bigger demand for it and are willing to pay for a certain convenience, for practicality and implementation, speed of implementation. Yeah. Yes, we are, but in a telecoms operator, the most important resource is spectrum, and we have some spectrum, but we need a lot more spectrum to drive a much higher experience. Yeah. Right now, for the spectrum that we have, you can drive certain speeds for all users at a certain time, but to do a much higher as your network fills up with usage and consumption, you need to expand spectrum. There's no other way to do it, really. Cost will go up, but the reason you need more spectrum is because there's more demand, right? So that's a kind of balancing act. So if you have more spectrum, that would be the most practical means to drive up speed of networks and also capacity for users to consume. But not the other way around. If you don't have spectrum, the alternative is to build more sites closer together. And that, the economics doesn't stack up. Yeah.
How can the government help here? Because we talk about digital Nepal framework. How does the government help Ncell?
Yeah, sure. The government has a significant role to play, actually. I think we understand that some of the policies are in place, whether from a regulatory perspective or frameworks in terms of how companies like ourselves invest and expect a return. I think regulators need to play an important role in terms of thinking about the industry, not only from one side of the equation, which is consumers. Yes, you regulate the service to make sure that consumers are not charged too much for the services and that the services are of the right quality for consumers. All those needs to be in place. But the other side of the equation is for companies like ourselves and operators to survive and do well, there need to be sufficient support on that side as well. And that refers to the right frameworks, the right level playing fields, the right amount of spectrum, given the telecom development in this market, given the digital Nepal aspirations, which obviously call for a high demand for, bandwidth per user. And you can only deliver that through spectrum or densification of networks. And densification of network is not something companies can do economically in a feasible manner. So that's the balancing act. We're very focused on 3 of the 8 pillars that that's been set by the government, which is all aligned to your Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations. So we focus on education, environment, and health. It's not that we don't do the rest, we do as well, but these are the three pillars that we tend to focus disproportionately. So there are some obvious things, I hope you have seen them, like the greening of the ring road, the 20.5 kilometer ring road that Ncell had done. I think it took us over 2 years to do it, so now it's all done, and we're maintaining it now. So that's just part of the green earth aspiration, which we do have also at the group level, right? Like reducing carbon footprint and all that. So that's a project that we did. 2 digital labs, we did that as well in collaboration with NTA, the regulator. So we identified 60 schools and we built digital labs for these schools. And these schools are all very remote schools. And most of the kids have not seen a computer, actually. So, that's something that we are proud of. I believe that's all just completed recently. It took us about 2 years as well. Obviously, all the COVID program support over the last 2 years that we've been quite actively supporting. Green Parks, the one in front of our office, is another one of those, greening thing for us to build a park for the community. Obviously in this area, it serves this area. Quite a few more, I'm just talking about the significant ones. And then another one we did was telemedicine. As you know, a lot of folks can't get to a clinic in the remote areas, right? So we had a program, or we still have a program with Duliko Hospital to build a telemedicine program, to over time equip 30 plus outposts to give them remote capabilities to see patients without them having to come to a clinic, which they may not have as well access. So it allows them to go to the nearest doctor appointed, and they have a kit that supports them. And the whole support system is through remote back into Duliko Hospital, where the central database. So they can do scanning. They can do immediate consultancy for any escalations, etc. So that's what we have done. So I think there's 4 or 5 outposts that's working now, and we'll continue to expand this as we progress along. So we're very focused these are all the top key projects. There are many more that we do in terms of with UNDP, with UNICEF and so on, although they are slightly smaller in terms of financial support.
So what can consumers expect from Ncell in the coming future?
Well, we pride ourselves on being a responsible corporate citizen, definitely. In terms of services that we deliver, we definitely pride ourselves on quality of service. We focus on customer experience majorly, and I hope if you are an Ncell user, you would experience the same, whether it's calling through our call center or using our services for data. That you do experience the difference in terms of quality of service. So our commitment is to deliver the best quality of service to consumers in Nepal for telecom services. Yeah. For all markets that we operate in, obviously we have a role to play in the economy, and it's not just Nepal, by the way. And for us here in Nepal, we have been one of the larger taxpayers since our inception. And in the course of our presence here in Nepal, we have contributed over 263 billion in taxes to the economy. On top of that, another 1.65 billion on CSR contributions. So, and then on top of that, we have generated also direct or indirect employment to some 100,000 Nepalese, actually. So you would appreciate that the telecom business, apart from those that work with us directly, we do generate a significant indirect employment. For example, 60 to 70,000 POS, point of sale channels. For example, all the outsource partners that we work with, over 1,500 seats or headcount that are involved with Ncell directly, and on top of the permanent staff that we have as well. So we calculate the total contribution based on all these parameters. Mm-hmm.